class, it's Isabella again, posting for our first week's class of fall semester. And this week we're talking about Bowen's theory. I'll be giving a brief overview of his theory and then hopefully discuss some of his concepts and apply it in my daily life. In the mid-20th century, Murray Bowen was among the pioneers of family therapy, and nearly every family therapist has continued to study his theory today. What Murray Bowen essentially is saying as he developed his theory is that no symptom or no problem just sits in an individual. He says, in fact, it just doesn't sit in a relationship, as for example, between a husband and a wife, because it belongs to the whole family, as if the whole family was one single organism. He discovered this through his research, and he discovered that even in a husband and wife dynamic, the husband and wife are going home to all other members of the family who are reacting to other relationships and those triangles that are part of the whole picture. So every member of a family is part of an emotional dynamic in which a symptom or a difficulty gets stuck. That's Bowen theory in a nutshell. So Bowen had 8 concepts, but for this particular assignment, I'll only be discussing 3, which are triangles, differentiation of self, and emotional cutoff. Bowen used the word anxiety as a general term for emotional tension or stress. He believed that anxiety moves through the family system from one person to the next, and that it impairs our ability to think and reason, and that our presenting problems are a result of this anxiety. So Bowen believed that we have 2 systems that guide us. We have the intellectual system and the feeling system. The feeling system involves emotions, automatic reactions, knee-jerk reactions, urges, etc. The intellectual or the reason system involves thinking, judgment, rational thought, reasoning, etc. He asserted that in order to make functional decisions, we need access to both systems, and we need to be able to differentiate between them. Bowen's most famous concept is the concept of differentiation of self. He believed that if someone is differentiated, they can do 2 things well. They can differentiate between the feeling system and the intellectual system. It also allows them to choose to be guided by either systems, and they can differentiate themselves from other people. They don't get wrapped up in other people's emotions. They can be intimate with others without losing their individuality and maintaining their separateness. In general, people at higher levels of differentiation have less emotional reactivity, have the ability to calm their emotions, can make more thoughtful and intentional decisions, don't give in to pressure from others, are less vulnerable to stress, and are independent. They are also less prone to extricate themselves from emotional entanglements, have fewer physical problems, emotional problems, and social problems, can have closeness with others without getting lost in the relationship, and have more fulfilling relationships. In general, people at lower levels of differentiation are more emotional reactive, have difficulty engaging in thoughtful behavior, have difficulty saying no to people, and are more critical and judgmental. They are overly concerned about approval, are more dependent on others, and are more prone to triangulation and entanglement and enmeshment, disengagement, conflict, and cutoff. They have difficulty making decisions. They have greater physical problems, emotional problems, and social problems. They have difficulty communicating directly and repeat problematic relationships rather than learning from their mistakes. Bowen rated people on a differentiation scale from 1 to 100, with 100 being completely differentiated and 1 being completely fused. In a family, the person with the lowest differentiation is often the symptom bearer of the family fusion. He believed that most people stay at the differentiation level they had when they left the family home, which is rarely above 60, and that we also tend to choose our spouses and our friends with similar differentiation levels. So he believed that our differentiation is relatively fixed, but it can be our differentiation can actually diverge from our baseline depending on our coping skills and our current stress level. So he believed that you can slowly raise your differentiation level by managing your emotional reactivity and by detriangulating yourself from your family, particularly from your parents. Apart from differentiation, Bowen also talked about triangulation. This is his other famous concept, wherein he believed that when two people experience relational tension, they tend to pull in a third party to dissipate that tension. So examples of triangles would be a conflictual married couple focuses on their child, to avoid marital conflict. Two people who meet together for the first time, and to alleviate their nervousness, they talk about the weather or sports. A child who misbehaves to distract his parents from fighting. A married couple who has lost their ability to communicate with each other, and so all they do is watch a lot of TV. These are all examples of emotional triangles, and Bowen believed that particular triangles become fixed over time, and families and act predictably to alleviate stress and anxiety. I'd like to delineate between what I might call a dysfunctional triangle and a functional triangle. A dysfunctional triangle obviously is one that perpetuates a problem, and a functional triangle is one that helps resolve the problem. Bowen believed that the triangle between you and your parents is the most important triangle in your life, and in that the triangle determines the interactual patterns of your future relationships. He said that you can detriangulate from a dysfunctional triangle by being as differentiated as possible when engaged with the triangle, by being as cool as possible, cool and calm as possible, that you're not taking sides, you're not becoming emotion reactive. Or you can make it a functional triangle by helping the dyad to resolve their problem. The concept of emotional contact describes people managing their unresolved emotional issues with parents, siblings, or other members of the family by reducing or totally cutting emotional ties with them. Emotional cutoff can be reduced by moving away from families or rarely going home, or by staying physically in contact but avoiding sensitive issues. The relationship may look better, but the problems are dormant and they remain unresolved. So as an example, I was a built-in psychologist in the family, mediating between my mother and father while I was growing up about their marital conflicts. My mom would triangulate with me, complain about my father. And my father as well would triangulate with me, complaining about my mother. My sister, who had always trouble with my father, triangulated with my mom, and which added more tension between my father and my mom because of her. So at one point when I was 20, I was in my college, probably late teens, I moved away from the family first, emotionally, tried to avoid sensitive issues, and didn't want to be part of the tripod relationship anymore with my father and mother. And later on, moved away physically and got my own apartment, avoided family gatherings or important occasions like Christmases. I think I avoided like 3 Christmases just to avoid attention. Also because my sister, who was the least differentiated, was the symptom bearer of the family, and there was too much tension, too much emotional undercurrent whenever she was around, and there were always like shouting matches and hysterics. The risk is that you make your new relationships too important by accommodating too much to your new relationships, and or being too vulnerable for pressuring that your new relationships to be certain ways with you, because so what happens is your new relationships are typically smooth in the beginning, but the patterns that I was trying to escape from eventually emerged, and were generated in my current relationships back then. So yeah, people who are cut off may try to stabilize their intimate relationships by creating substitute families with social or work relationships. People often look forward to going home, like I did, hoping things will be different, that the old interactions would not surface. But what happens is usually they surface within hours, and they may take the form of surface harmony, but with powerful emotional undertow, or it may deteriorate into shouting matches and hysterics again. It can be exhausting even after a brief visit, and it may be easier for example, for my sister to be to stay away from my sister, to keep a distance from her whenever we were around her or she was around us, because the family gets so anxious and reactive when she's home, and actually it relieves, and the family's relieved when she leaves. Sad, but it's a reality. The sensitivities of everybody preclude us from comfortable contact with her. So how would the Bowenian therapist work with my family? The therapist would have to work through me as the most, because I'm the most differentiated of the family, and by differentiating, that would mean that whenever I am amongst my family, that I would have to remain calm and cool, non-defensive. Also, that I would have to de-triangulate from my mom, who always confided in me about my dad. But my father passed away already, but now I would have to de-triangulate from her triangulating with me because of my sister's issues that are still ongoing. And I would also have to de-triangulate from my sister, from confiding in me about her complaints about my mom. So that means I will have to emotionally be connected with them, stay physically in contact with them, but not be emotionally reactive. And I'm glad I have been that way. I think when I moved away, I was able to gain more insight about my family, and also being in psychology. I was able to understand the dynamics of my family, the structure of my family, and all of that stuff. I don't think I would have been a better person if I had not left. I think that the emotional cutoff helped me in a way. It may have given pressure to my other relationships, but I'm a better person as a result. Yeah. So thanks for joining me, for listening to me, and I hope to hear your feedback. Thank you.